Finally, after a week of people being outraged of Aura being taken out, we have episode 11 of Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Last week was absolutely dorky. How many people were so mad that Aura was dead? They were like, why couldn't they have just turned Aura into a waifu to follow Frieren around? Because this is not that story. I had the same feeling with Linnea. This idea of like, Linnea was so cute girl with a massive axe. I wanted to hang around, but that's not what Frieren. This story is not that. Frieren wants them all dead. But the memes that came out of that were very good. There was a lot of great memes that came out of that, which is one of those appreciations for a show like this that you really love being really popular. The memes, the art, and everything that comes out from it is fantastic. So, yeah, but episode 11. So you're telling me Frieren Beyond Journey's End is going to have Frieren actually have to go to school? Or at least have an exam done? But no, episode 11 of Frieren Beyond Journey's End, an absolutely excellent episode. A nice cool down, honestly. Have the characters kind of take a step back and get a lot of emphasis on several different topics here. I mean, we're obviously hitting once again on the idea of afterlife, the idea of the desire for a person, no matter what kind of race, to have somebody sort of there to praise them for their work. Somebody to give them some sort of positive reinforcement for the things they do. And yes, technically a little bit dabbling into the idea that how Frieren is not so open about her own self. A lot of really cool subjects in here to really kind of dive into, so let's jump into it. The very beginning segment of this is kind of the aftermath of this fight against Aura, where we have, yes, Granite coming up and acknowledging the fact that Frieren did not destroy all the bodies, did a good job in not going against Himmel's wishes. Let's just say, I like how they keep kind of hitting on it, thank you so much for respecting the bodies, and she's over there like, Hamill just told me to do that. I used to use really flashy stuff, but Hamill told me not to. But it was kind of cute in the idea that he had Fern going, wow, Hamill trained you well. No, that's not really what I guess that's technically what I meant. Yes, technically he did kind of guide me very well, I guess. But it was very interesting and subtle note here in the idea that Frieren, in response to this statement, pretty much goes, yeah, I guess that is a normal reaction. And she very briefly recalls the face of Aura when she told her the same thing. And it's kind of that one thing of like, almost feeling like, it seems like Aura understands people like Fern or humans more than Frieren herself. Like, oh yeah, the idea of Hamill himself sort of guiding Frieren to change her ways is a thing. It did happen. Hamill did change her. But now this cuts to them going back to the town, being treated like heroes, and Granite, this stupid joke the entire episode about how to treat nobility and how the idea that, yes, technically, Frieren is being very polite, and Granite's like, you don't have to do that. And she's like, well, I had a bad experience when we came back, because yes, that whole situation where Aizen and Hamill were speaking very casually to the king, and they nearly got executed. So obviously, she's going to be speaking very formally with him. But Stark's like the joke the entire episode is this... For some reason, randomly, this guy walks to the door and opens it up and has an axe in his hand. Oh, I finished cutting down those trees in the garden. The door just closes and Stark just freaks out. And then like later on, the ink actually pops up again out of nowhere, just standing there with the axe, and Stark freaks out again. It was absolutely dorky. A nice little callback to that whole conversation that he had with Granite. But no, that's kind of odd because, yes, obviously, Frieren, the reward that she wants is the grimoire, or whatever knowledge they pass down for this defensive shield. And Granite gives her a grimoire that they always keep, but it's actually fake. Frieren picks up on it really quick. Yeah, this is fake, obviously. He's like, yes, that's a fake because we always orally pass down this spell that creates the defensive line. But I was kind of curious in the idea of why Frieren at that point did not request Granite to give her that knowledge orally. Like, tell me what it is, unless it's something that's going to take a long time, which I don't think Frieren would care. Like, oh, so it's going to take 3 years in order for you to train me it? All right, I got time. Because, again, this is something that she's seeking. This is something that Flamel passed down, or at least gave to them, that they passed down through generations. So it's kind of odd that she didn't request that, unless, cut to, 5 episodes later, Frieren uses it, and we go, oh yeah, that's right, Granite taught her it. It just seemed odd to not say, well, then tell me it. But no, I did like the fact that they had to carry Stark out, floating, and the kids out in the street going, he's floating. Just kind of carrying him through there. There was a lot of Fern x Stark moments in this episode. Honestly, it feels like this episode, they really are shipping the two of them as having like this cute little relationship. Honestly, how much Fern goes out of her way in order to help Stark this episode really does show me that. And then kind of showing, Stark kind of catching her and helping her and stuff. It was super cute. Though I do have to admit, and I'm jumping ahead, yes, there was a side of me, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but there was a side of me that was like, oh, Stark's going to wake up and he's going to at least have a lap pillow. He's going to have at least, can he have at least a lap pillow? No. Obviously, there's this other elf there. He's going to be the one, if anybody's going to get him something. But no, this is where we get into the thing that I was joking at the very beginning, that there is seemingly this concept of credentials, certificates, and I like this, but I don't like it. I'm always fearful of school arcs. I'm always fearful when a series that I'm in love with and I get into it and then suddenly pop into schools. It's the whole Seraph of the End syndrome. Seraph of the End opens up insanely good, like super good, and then school. For some reason, school. Now, I will admit that a lot of shows lately that I'm like falling in love with, they handle the school arcs really well, so I shouldn't have that fear anymore, but I still have it. But no, what they're kind of pointing out here is that in the Northern Territories, further up north, the place they're trying to go to, this place, this heaven, there's a lot of places up there that aren't doing well. Like, things are pretty crazy, and they're not letting people just pass through. And any adventurers that want to go up there, they have to have an A-class certified mage. And so this is something that Frieren's not aware of. She's been living for a long time, and it's not as if she's constantly trying to find out, okay, so how are you regulating magic anymore? It's like, as she's been progressing her life, apparently over here, humankind, mages and whatnot, are trying to keep some sort of regulatory system for magic. And it seems like she was given something in the past. Like, at some point, she got some sort of certification, and that was this holy emblem. But of course, Fern says it's an antique. But no, apparently the Mage Association has this regulatory system, and they issue a rank. And apparently, at some point when they were at this one kingdom, Fern got hers, and I think it said that she was a 3rd class, but they needed a 1st class in order to go up there. Now, here's where, on one hand, I like this because it's expanding the world of magic in this world. It was just like earlier when they had the whole thing with Qual, when they were talking about how they took that spell and they basically advanced magic with it. They created shields to protect against it and all that kind of stuff. I like this advancement of the magic mechanics. And I like the world building it's doing. But at the same time, yes, there is a fear of me of like, why would Frieren need to do that? Again, this goes back to the whole thing of like, Frieren, the person who saved this entire country. She's going to go up there and they're going to go, oh my gosh, it's Frieren, the hero mage that saved everybody, killed the Demon King. But do you have your certification? It's like, no, Frieren, please. Continue. Please go by. No, they're not going to ask for a 1st class mage certification. She's going to be like, okay, let her through. It's Frieren. On one hand, yes, technically, it's not as if everybody knows who Frieren is. This was a long time ago. We're talking, what was it, 80 years? It's been a long time since this happened. Everybody that was around back then is either dirt old or dead. Nobody knows who Frieren is. That was the whole idea of Hamel and them leaving behind statues for her, because as everybody forgets, the only people that remember are the people that are in areas where they save somebody, or they have a legacy that's left behind, a story that's left behind for the people. Even still, it's not as if they know who Frieren is. It was mostly Himmel that was making sure to have statues left behind. It wasn't Frieren. So yeah, I can see that a lot of people aren't going to know who Frieren is. But anyways, I'll be interested to see how that goes. I'm assuming that they'll go to this place and she's just going to blast something and then they'll go, oh yeah, here's your certification. I don't know. Now, it may be interesting if they actually play into what Frieren has done through Flammel's tutelage. And the idea that everything that Frieren has learned on how to use magic is, cowardice and disgraceful to mages. And that might be something that'll affect her even getting a 1st class license. So that might actually turn something interesting there. Then just she walks up and blows away a target dummy and they all go, Sugoi, here you go. But yeah, that's where we head out north. And I was very shocked that they didn't have a send-off. Like the previous town, they had this massive send-off because they knew who she was. And here, where she actually literally saved them, no send-off. I was shocked by that. Maybe they asked Greta, please don't have them give a send-off. I don't want it. But it would have been cool, similar to before, having Stark and Fern experience that. But in this case, they were the heroes. But yeah, heading off to the north. At some point, Stark, little wussy. I'm sorry, Stark. You looked pretty bad this episode. You having a girl have to carry you. I have to say, Fern, girl's got some muscle. Like, she couldn't use her magic to carry him. She actually had to haul him. She did a good job. Girl's got muscle. But she's like, why is this dude so heavy? He's like, he smells so good. Can I drop him and leave him behind? Please bear with it. It was super cute. Again, it was little moments of like, dang, Fern's taking care of Stark. I like this kind of cute, sisterly kind of thing at least. But now they arrive at the cabin and yes, they meet Kraft the monk, another elf. We finally see another elf, which is super shocking. Apparently he came up from the north. He's doing his travels because he's a monk and he believes in the goddess herself. First impressions aren't great. Fern immediately thinks that he's a pervert. We can't stay here. And he's just trying to keep warm. The dude's just trying to stay warm. I mean, you literally opened the door on him. He could have been changing. He could have been sleeping. He could have been something even worse. But no, a couple things in introduction here. We're learning, obviously, this guy, Kraft, he hasn't seen another elf in 300 years. He's assuming, similar to Frieren, that they're all gone. But unlike Frieren, he is seemingly devout believer in a goddess. It was kind of interesting throughout this entire thing to note that Fern is a devout person as well, which, yes, technically makes sense because she was raised by Hyter. That doesn't mean necessarily that she has to be a believer, but it does seem like at least whatever teachings that he gave upon Fern, this is something that she keeps to. Even so much that Kraft points out that the entire time they were there, which they were there together for 6 months, at least 6 months, and Kraft noted that Fern was very pious. Like, she was constantly on top of thanking the goddess, which again makes sense because of her being raised by a priest. But it's interesting to see that difference there, and that yes, Frieren doesn't actively attack anybody that believes in this goddess. Yeah, she is kind of curious the idea of Kraft being a believer of this goddess, but it's not as if she's going out of her way to say, you're wrong, there's no goddess. She's just pointing out the idea of, why am I not? Well, because they haven't been around. They haven't shown themselves since the age of the ancients. Like, there's no reason for me to believe in it. By all accounts, Frieren, for the most part in this story so far, has been a very realist kind of person. If I can't examine it or touch it, then there's no reason of paying attention. But I really like the injection of Kraft in the story right here. I don't feel like he's a very energetic character. He's not a bombastic character, but at the same time, he's a subtle character that is sort of opening the door to the religious system in this world, the belief system. Not so much getting into the goddess herself, getting into deep theories of religion, but more so seeing somebody in a natural state of being a believer. Hyter, yes, technically was that, but we didn't get much of Hyter. We just get little subtle moments of Hyter. This is a huge chunk of this episode of seeing how they act. And it's really just, from his perspective, why he believes it, which I do really appreciate. In contrast to Frieren, who Frieren, most of her life, as we've seen from the previous episode, she spent isolated. Purposely, Frieren was an isolated person. She didn't meet people. She didn't try to leave her name, a legacy behind. She was staying secluded because Flamel said, stay secluded. Don't pass down your name. Don't make a name for yourself until you defeat the Demon King. Then your name is established. Then you can come to the public, because Flamel wanted Frieren not to let anybody know who she was, how powerful she was. So there was actually a story reason why Frieren, despite living so long, is a socially awkward person, because she never hung out with anybody. She never had a family. She never really socialized with people. She wasn't leaving a legacy. She was supposed to be non-existent. But that was all for her goal. Now, in contrast, we have Kraft here, who is actively seeking to have somebody acknowledge him. He talks about the fact that he's lived for so long that, yes, everybody back here that knew him, that knew of his escapades, all of his triumphs, they're all dead. I have nobody else around me. Nobody really remembers me. And this is why he believes in a spiritual being, and this idea of somebody that's always there, that will be there waiting for me when I pass on, that will have seen everything I did. It's going into the realm of the idea of not necessarily fully believing at something, but having to believe in something. I need this to exist. I can't tell you if it exists or not, but I need this to exist because this gives him purpose. This gives his life meaning because everybody else dies away. It's massively heartbreaking, but at the same time, that is technically his goal, his reasoning. I need this goddess to exist because when I get done with all this, I am looking forward to her praising me for everything I did, which sadly for Frieren isn't something she's seeking. Now, this could be something that kind of nudges her to have a desire for that. It's obviously seeing somebody who's so devoted to something and sees things so differently, how Kraft is going out of his way in order to give things. I'm so happy you're here because I have all these supplies. Please take them. Like, he's actively trying to assist them, despite the fact they're strangers. Everything is for a purpose. You're here because I have these supplies and they would be wasted otherwise. Everything is with a purpose. It's really fantastic stuff, and it all kind of opens the door to this idea of seeking and desiring somebody to acknowledge your achievements. And again, something that we've never really kind of addressed with Frieren as a character is her desiring anybody to care what she's done. She's never sought somebody to acknowledge what she's done. When she goes to a town, she doesn't go to the leader and say, I'm Frieren, the hero, praise me. She actively doesn't want that. She doesn't want the send-off. She's avoiding all that stuff, which is kind of sad to think because of everything that Frieren has technically sacrificed. Now, you could say that it's not a sacrifice to her because she's actively killing the things that she wants to get rid of. It wasn't like somebody had to pay her to take down the Demon King because she wanted to. But no, I love this because when Kraft offers to Frieren, well, since you don't believe in this goddess, since you don't believe in this goddess that I am actively believing in because I want this goddess to praise me, I will be the one to hear your story and offer you that praise. I will be a stand-in for this goddess. It's not a Frieren, start believing in this goddess so that it can praise you. No, it's because you don't, and that's why I'm doing it, I will offer that to you. I'm going to pass that down. It seems to be, either by coincidence or by the religion itself, seems to be something that both him and Heiter have actually offered to Frieren, which was a big shock. Mainly in the idea of what it sort of opens the door to. Heiter actually knew. We get this little brief shot of this orphanage that Heiter has been supporting, and we have this little moment where they're sitting next to each other, and he's talking about his goddess and how all this idea of praise and whatnot. And again, brings up that same thing. Well, if you don't believe in her, I will listen to your story. Tell me about yourself. And it's not that interesting. But it has to be an interesting story because you're suppressing your mana this whole time. Heiter finally reveals that, yes, he knew. He knew that she was doing that. I wish it said why. Again, that was my question mark with Himmel. Is this idea of somebody actually acknowledging that there was something special about Frieren, and I was hoping that that would be like a reasoning behind that. But no, Heiter at some point kind of realized that that's not the case with Frieren. She's suppressing her mana. And that could be the idea that he's seeing Frieren use insane spells and constantly cast spells, so okay, obviously that's not your mana pool. That's not your magic capability. You're obviously suppressing something. But again, acknowledging that that's a feat and wanting to know more about it in case one day he raises his own child as a mage, and that is Frieren, which I should have seen this coming. I should have acknowledged this because, I mean, the brief time that Frieren has been with Frieren, it's not a brief time. It's a significant time, but not enough time to master it as much as she has. You could say, yes, Frieren is a quick learner. She's a very fast learner. But to do something like this, that's got to take a lot of talent to learn it that fast. So it makes sense that Heiter, the entire time he's been raising Frieren, was teaching her as well. Before Frieren even showed up, he was already instilling upon her how to suppress her mana. So it was really cool, like a nice little tie-in to that whole thing. But no, it was a cute offer there. Frieren wrapping up the conversation saying, you don't need to. I already had somebody praise me. It's super cute. I love these little touchbacks to the old crew and seeing how much heart was in there. These little subtle moments of how much heart was in there. There's a part of it that, yes, these old stories are cute. I love seeing that progression, seeing these moments where Frieren realizes something that she lost. And this is another moment of that. It's always to recognize what has been lost, but there's also this element of Frieren acknowledging that she does appreciate each and every single one of these members of her old party. Because that's the whole purpose of what she's doing. She's going to the north in order for her to see, initially, to see Himmel, but now she's sort of getting a sense of, oh, yeah, I want to see Heiter too. And unfortunately, and I have a prediction here, is that it might be Eisen too eventually. What if by the time she gets to the north, time has passed and Eisen passes away and she sees Eisen there as well? It could be. I mean, we could just probably stick to the idea that, she returns back to Eisen and sees him, but at least with Heiter, it is nice to see that she finally has a reason to want to talk to him too as well, probably. But yeah, good episode. Mixed in within here, yes, was the whole thing with Stark and him passing out, being a little weakling, having to be carried around by Fern. Again, that nice little cute Fern actually taking care of Stark moment. Again, like a big sister. She's super cute taking care of him. Yes, that brief moment of possibly having a lap pillow of Fern, but no, he wakes up and Kraft's arm in the bed and freaks out. But no, he liked seeing how buff Kraft was. It seemed like he trained with him for a little bit, kind of showing him how he got so fit and everything. We also had a cute little Fern Moe moment, her nearly falling off the roof. That was super cute, and Stark catching her. Just overall, really, again, very cute, very seemingly subtle, but a very impactful episode. Oh my gosh, and I nearly forgot. There is one very, you can miss it if you do not keep an eye on it. There is a very subtle note in this episode that's very important to acknowledge. Frieren is a blanket thief. Frieren likes to steal the blankets. This is a little brief shot of Fern, like, just shivering there, and Frieren had pulled the blankets off of her, and I'm like, there it is. We've got confirmation Frieren is a blanket thief. You gotta watch out for blanket thieves. But yeah, great episode. I think what I like most about this episode is just so much emphasis on the idea of wanting somebody to acknowledge you, wanting somebody to see what you've done in your life, wanting some sort of praise for the things you do. I think there is an empty aspect of somebody living a life where nobody sort of sees at least what you're doing. That not necessarily that you constantly need positive reinforcement, that you have to constantly be praised for what you do. It's not like you're Frieren who woke up early in the morning. You need somebody to sit next to you and say, good job for waking up early in the morning. It's more of an idea that every now and then, I think just once in a blue moon, every now and then you need somebody to acknowledge that what you're doing has progress, that you've done something in your life, that you've made some sort of accomplishment, because sometimes you can feel empty without that. So I do think there's a really positive message here. And yes, that can be through, like what Kraft is doing here, that can just be the idea of having a belief of somebody acknowledging what you're doing, at least seeing what you've done in your life, even if you can't have people around you all the time. So it's good stuff. It's a very good message in here, very positive message, and I think I don't know how impactful it'd be to Frieren. I think with this episode, the growth is really going to be in the idea that Frieren is at least acknowledging once again, or at least confirming that, yes, Heiter praised me for what I did. That Heiter was something in her life. Was it something significant in her life? But yeah, I can see it in the idea that going forward, she could want that desire to pass something on to Fern and Stark, which she's already technically doing. But yeah, anyways, looking forward to the next episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below. Comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button's on my content. I news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Really appreciate everybody does. And y'all take care.